The start of the candidate forum in 2024 included Jordan VanWinkle, a live auction, introduction of elected officials, and incumbent justices running to retain their seats.
Including former U.S. Vice President Al Gore. But the corruption inside the United States ag industry does not end there, especially in regard to meat processing facilities. Under the Obama presidency,
3.5, all in, all done. 3.5, now 4. You're out in the back. What do you get 4? 3.5 up here, now 4. 3.5, now 4, now 4. What do you get 4? 3.5, now 4. 4, now 4.5. 4.5, now 5. 4.5, now 5, now 5. What do you get 5? 4.5, now 5. 4.5, now 5, now 5. What do you get 5? 5, now 5.5. 5, now 5.5. 5, now 5, now 5, now what do you get 5.5? 5, now 5.5. Sir, you dollars.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk about the Supreme Court. Let me talk, of course, I've got a primary opponent in this race who I've never met. I've been out on the campaign trail for months, and he's decided to campaign from his attic and throw bombs at me. It's kind of hard to run against that. It's kind of hard to give you some perspective about his virtues and whether they're better or worse than mine. But I'm here, and I'm here to tell you that it's an honor, a true honor for me to have served as your justice on the Texas Supreme Court, place for nearly the last 12 years. The work that we do on the court is very consequential, and I want to bring up a case that Jordan brought up regarding eminent domain, and also a case that's also very important to the jurisprudence of the state, and in fact saved the state of Texas during the 2020 elections when we disallowed 3.5 million applications of ballots by mail to go out in Houston. Now, I can promise you that had those gone out, we would be a Democrat-controlled state. But we didn't. We shut them down, and we are still where we're at, but the war isn't over. These folks are going to come back and come back and come back, looking for ways to cut into the freedoms that we have here in Texas. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been married to my wife, Ruby, for 34 years. We have 7 children, and yes, I do know what causes that. She has stuck with me all these many years, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I started my career a little differently than a lot of my colleagues. I started my career in business, where I started with Shell Oil Company, and I was in their executive management training program, and they sent me to law school and so forth, and I got great experience. I went to every business unit Shell has, learned the business from the ground up. I then went on to Brown & Root, at the time one of the world's largest industrial construction companies, where I was involved in project management. I built things like paper mills and pharmaceutical plants and automobile manufacturing facilities, chemical plants, refineries, you name it, and somewhere along the line I built it. And I consider that to be a valuable asset, giving me valuable insight as I try to make my way through the law, interpreting statutes, enforcing the laws equally and fairly across the state of Texas. Now, I'm a constitutional constructionist. That means that I believe the Constitution says what it means and means what it says. And that was something that my mentor, Antonin Scalia, always impressed upon me. A great man, a jurist on the U.S. Supreme Court for many, many years. And so I learned from him. That coupled with my faith, which yes indeed makes up a very large component of how I run my business. And it should you too. And that's what we've gotten away from in this country, is we're afraid to admit that our upbringing, our faith, has significance in the civil square. And we've got to get that back. And we've got to fight for it every single day. Oftentimes, and I'll go into maybe a couple examples of where I've had to stand alone on these important issues that I find are so fundamentally constitutional important to your rights, that somebody must speak up. An example of that might be, and I'll just go ahead and get into the eminent domain. We had a case a year or so, 2 years ago, involving what was called the bullet train from Houston to Dallas. And that was so a foreign corporation came over here, registered as a railroad. And of course, registering as a railroad, they thought, automatically gave them the power of eminent domain, which is to take your farm and cut it in pieces and so forth to suit their railroad. So that case came before the court. We took the case, we heard it. But I found myself on the outside looking in. I was the only vote that said, not only do they not have eminent domain, because the legislature has to give it to this railroad, if you even agree that they're a railroad, which I did not. But ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you, through your elected representatives, to tell them that you want to have them to give the power specifically so you can hold them accountable. You don't want a bunch of judges deciding that, when in fact it was a violation of our own Constitution. I am proud to serve you. I look forward to seeing you guys get out and triple and quadruple your numbers. God bless you, and God bless the precious state of Texas. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. As you heard, my name is Michelle Slaughter, and I'm so proud to serve the great state of Texas on the Court of Criminal Appeals. What many of you may not know is in Texas, we have a split Supreme Court, because of course, Texas, we like to do things a little differently. So we have a split Supreme Court. The Texas Supreme Court, which you heard from Justice John Devine, handles civil matters only. And the Court of Criminal Appeals is the court of last resort for criminal law matters. So we are your criminal law Supreme Court. As you heard, I've participated in addressing more than 20,000 criminal law matters in my just over 5 years on the court. That is to illustrate and tell you that the Court of Criminal Appeals is one of the busiest appellate courts in the nation. In fact, we receive about 3 times the number of filings that the Texas Supreme Court does, and we issue about 3 times the number of opinions that they do as well. And that's not to take anything away from our very hard-working, very busy Texas Supreme Court. It's just to tell you we are that much busier, and we are working very hard for you. Now, there are 9 of us on our court. There's 9 of the justices on the Texas Supreme Court, and we are all Republican, thank God. And it is thanks to the great folks like you who get out there and talk to your friends and neighbors and stand for your values and vote and encourage others to vote. So thank you for all the hard work you do. Now, I want to mention one thing that, going back to what Jordan said also. Where's Jordan? There she is back there. So my grandfather was also a farm boy turned World War II veteran, Korean War veteran, who settled in Henderson County. So that's another little connection we have. But anyway, I just want to let you know that I am a constitutional conservative. I am an originalist judge. I will never be an activist judge, regardless of public or political pressure or any sort of outside influence. And I will always strictly interpret our Constitution and laws as written and as originally intended, even if I do not like the law or the outcome, because as judges, we are not the ones to change the law. That has to be our legislators. And when it comes to our Texas Constitution, constitutional amendments are for we the people, the voters, not for judges. And so you have my word, and you will be able to see through my opinions that I am a constitutional conservative and originalist judge, always have been, always will be. Before joining the Court of Criminal Appeals, I served as a trial judge in Galveston County. I served there for 6 years, where I presided over thousands of civil and felony criminal cases and more than 100 bench and jury trials. I've been blessed to serve. I was a practicing attorney before I became a judge. I had a great career. I worked for 2 large international law firms in their downtown Houston offices. Loved my work, but I became a judge because I was tired of complaining. In Galveston County, where I live, we had 2 very liberal activist judges, and they were doing a terrible job, and it was very upsetting to me. And I finally said, you know what, no one else is doing something about it, I'm going to do something about it. So I ran against to be the 12-year incumbent Democrat judge to become the first Republican judge of the 405th District Court in Galveston County. When I took over that bench, it was a mess. It was the least efficient, least effective district court with the highest backlog, and within my first 2 years on that bench, I transformed it into the most efficient, most effective district court with the lowest backlog. I also promoted transparency and finding ways to save taxpayer dollars, because that is who I am. I work hard, I get things done, and I put my conservative values to work to help our community and to help our court system. Because I'm passionate about our justice system. It is the absolute best in the world. It's not perfect, we have problems, but it is the best in the world, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I do have an opponent for the primary. I would love to have your support and your vote. I have earned tremendous conservative endorsements throughout the state because of my conservative values and my work on the court, and that includes Texas Right to Life, Texas Values, Texas Alliance for Life, Republican National Committee man Dr. Robin Armstrong, Republican National Committee woman Tony Ann Dashiell, Senator Mays Middleton, and dozens of other elected officials, including state senators and state representatives from across the state. I have a list on my website, judgemichelleslaughter.com. I also have tremendous law enforcement endorsements all across the state, and that is because law enforcement knows what we do on the Court of Criminal Appeals, and they know that I am a law and order judge. So this March, and early voting starts tomorrow, but this March 5th, please make sure that you vote to keep Judge Slaughter. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. It is, and I think Donnie and Bright Star Women for putting on this great event. I'm unopposed, but I am going to ask for your vote, because judicial service is a public service, and that means you're the boss. Now, I'll say this about the Texas County Court of Appeals, the 6th Court of Appeals. Why 6? Because Texas numbers their courts of appeal by the order of creation. Sorry, I always have to bend over these microphones. I just grab the thing. Okay. What is the Texas County Court of Appeals, the 6th Court of Appeals? You just heard from the Texas Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals. They're the highest courts in the system. We're the intermediate court in the system, in between the Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals and the trial courts. So what do? We try to make life easier and simplify things. And that's, you've heard about the rule of law already. That's implementing the rule of law. So that you're going to hear about district judges. They need to know how to give people a fair trial. Sheriffs and DAs need to know how to go about their business. And we try to explain that in cases that come to us. And also, most importantly, we try to implement the law as it is written for accountability purposes. So when you vote for a legislator and that legislator enacts a law, you can have confidence it's going to be actually implemented in the courts. So that way you can have predictability and go about your life. And thank you very much. And that's 6 good things.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And we'll see you at the next video.